My name is Dan Koch, and welcome to my office in Citrus County, Florida. I am one of the District Technology TOSAs, or Teacher on Special Assignment, for Citrus County School District. And my job entails a lot of different stuff, but suffice it to say that what I do most often is I travel to different schools within our district, so elementary, middle schools, and high schools, and I provide professional development for teachers and students based on our technology initiative. We have been a one-to-one iPad district since 2012. So we started at the middle school that I used to work at, which was Citrus Springs Middle School. Every 7th grader got an iPad to take home for the remainder of the school year, and they kept it. They brought it back to school with them every day, and that was kind of the start of our one-to-one program. Now it's branched out to every middle school. We have 4 middle schools, and we have 3 high schools, and all of our elementary schools as well have iPads in some fashion. So some of them have carts in teacher classrooms. Some schools, all of our middle schools, and there are pockets of our high school grades that have iPads to take home with them for the entirety of the school year. So what we began last year was a way for parents to become involved, sort of like a family engagement summit that parents could come to, called Family University in our district. And it was offered at a variety of school sites. And what we did was we offered parents some free food. It was usually pizza, and we invited them to take part in some sessions that teachers would run based on our technology initiative. So it would be, how to check your grades in our online grading platform, which was Skyward, teaching parents a little bit about our different apps that we were using in classrooms, and it was marginally successful. The problem was that even though we communicated through social media and we sent flyers home and stuff like that, even though we tried to get the word out about Family University, it was still a little bit ambiguous for parents to understand. They weren't quite sure what the sessions were going to be in terms of what we were offering, what the point of the night was. So we kind of rebranded it this year. We put our heads together and we came up with Star Tech Nights. Now, full disclosure, I did not come up with this title. The great Laura Higgs actually answered a question when we were first brainstorming. We were trying to come up with names, and I put it out there on Twitter. I said, hey, anybody have any ideas for this type of a night? And Laura suggested Star Tech Nights, and that one stuck. So thanks, Laura. So these nights have been very successful since we have rebranded it as Star Tech. We've seen really good attendance from parents. We have seen student participation, and just on social media, we have kind of been establishing a presence for positivity. So we've been publishing a lot of this stuff. I'll show you a couple of these tweets up on the screen here. Students have presented. We've had different teachers present, and it really just has been an excellent experience and definitely an evolution. What I wanted to do was I wanted to share with you the presentation that I give before all these nights start. So we begin the night where we introduce all the teacher presenters, and then I kind of give a keynote speech, if you will, basically just establishing why we have these nights, how important technology is to our students and staff, and why we really advocate for technology, not just because of the bells and whistles or because it's shiny, but because it really does allow us to do something different in the classroom that we could not have done before. So the rest of this video is going to be the exact presentation that I give. I don't claim ownership of any of the ideas here. It is really just all awesome stuff that I have heard at different conferences from a lot of different awesome educational thought leaders, from different teachers that I really respect and are awesome. It has some of my philosophical fingerprints on it and some of my own ideas, but for the most part, it's pretty much crowdsourced. And, as George Couros says, the smartest person in the room is the room. So let's spread the wealth around. So I call my presentation Education 3.0 because I think we're past the point of talking about education and how it's going to be changed by technology at some point, where there's this technology that exists in the world, and once it permeates our classrooms, we're finally going to see a change. I think we're past that next iterative phase already. So I think that it is valuable to talk about this image that I keep seeing at conferences. So it's an image of a classroom, obviously from a long time ago, black and white photo, and all the students are sitting in rows working in workbooks, it looks like. And usually this is there's a caption on this picture that says, "Classrooms haven't changed in 100 years." And the problem with that is that I've been seeing that image with that headline for the past 7 years. So why hasn't that changed? So here's another black and white image that I do not take credit for making, but it's an image of a whole bunch of people on a train, and their faces are firmly in their newspapers, getting their daily news, it looks like. And with the caption, "Technology is making us antisocial." Now that's obviously a dig at people that say that students or the younger generation or anybody with a smartphone or device with their nose in it the same exact way, they would scoff at it and say, well, technology, that makes you antisocial. Why don't you put the device down and go actually do something authentic? Well, I could argue that these people are doing something authentic that matters and is valuable to them. They are getting their news for the day. They're just going about it in a different way. They did not have the capability to log on to the internet on a device in the palm of their hand and get their information or their news or their media that way. They were kind of forced to be analog with it. But we have these tools at our disposal, so I would challenge your thinking to not just assume that technology is the catalyst for making anybody antisocial. A lot of times, students, especially if it's early in the morning and they are on their device, I would equate it to this same exact thing. If it's early in the morning and I'm on my device, or if I'm reading the paper, I just kind of want to zone out a little bit and get my news. So what's different is the way in which we obtain this information. That's really all that's changed. Now, we live with these screens all around us, and there we have phones in our pockets, we have iPads in our purses, we have computers at work. It's how we live. It's how we exist today. So to tell a kid to come into my classroom and to make them basically take a time machine and go backwards because I'm not comfortable with the technology, and I say, close your screen down, you have to listen to me, I'm the most important person in the room, when they have a device that is a conduit to every expert in the world, I think that's educational malpractice. It really, when you think about it, it is. So I had one simple rule. If you're on your device and you're in my class and we're discussing something, if we're doing a lesson, and if what you're doing on your screen matches the instruction that I'm giving, right on. That's completely fine. If your screen doesn't match exactly with the slide that I may have up on the screen, completely fine. You may have to corral kids in. They get off task, obviously. They're students, but to deny them this, to say, we have to put them in the corner, we have to stack them up on a desk in the back of the classroom because now it's time for real authentic learning because I say so, I just think that's wrong. Another thing that I hear a lot is that we are, as teachers, preparing our students for jobs that don't yet exist. And there's some truth to that. There's value in thinking along those lines. Yes, there's going to be some jobs that we could not have fathomed when we were younger that exist for students as opportunities when they graduate and go into the workforce. But I don't want it to be too far-reaching where we as teachers, just because these are students of the future, that we could not possibly prepare them for the job that they're going to eventually have. Sometimes we talk about the 21st century and 21st century learning as if it's this thing that's eventually going to happen, and we're 16 years into it. So we need to kind of be aware of that fact that, yes, it's been the turn of the century for a while now. So we need to prepare our students for the jobs that they're going to have, but we also need to prepare them for the world that they live in right now. We need to be that guide for them. Our job as educators is to teach children to be critical thinkers, problem solvers, but not just problem solvers, problem finders. Here's a problem, how do I solve it in the world, and how do I do something that can make the world a better place? So let's talk about a job that could not have existed even 10 years ago. Here's a photo of two founders of a company. This is a photo from their college days, and there's some computers in the background. Here's another one of them working with a couple of other employees. Some more computers that look like nicer computers this time. Here's a nice photo of them. It looks professional. And they eventually sold their company, which had 13 employees and never made 1 cent, to another company for $1 billion. And that company was Instagram, and the company that purchased them was Facebook. And I think it's important to realize that this type of company, this type of job, would not have existed had it not been for this type of technology and these devices that we have in our hands all the time. There's a viewership and there's a customer base for this type of thing that just didn't exist back even 10 years ago. So that's what I mean when I talk about the jobs that are going to exist in the future that we may not be able to think of now, but they still encompass all of the skills that we need to impart to our students. Problem solving, problem finding. These two found a problem, not necessarily maybe a problem, but they found a customer need or a customer perceived need to put filters on photos, and they ran with it. With that in mind, we need to start reevaluating our role as a teacher. To exist as a teacher in 2016 and beyond, we need to be very cognizant that Everything that kids want to know is out there. All they have to do is know how and where to go get it. They really don't need us to be the disseminators of information for them at all. If all they needed was info, they don't even need to come to school. They can just open a device and get information that way. So if we keep thinking of our primary role is delivery of content to our students, we're going to lose to Google every time. So I think to remain complacent and to cling to our role as it once was it's kind of going to be a little bit antiquated. We need to at least be aware that our job as information disseminators is kind of gone with the wind, and we need to redefine our role to exist with this technology, because like I said, it's not going away. We can't fight to not do it because it's only just going to keep building on iterations of itself. So we need to fix our mindset a little bit. So can devices be distraction? Yes. But to automatically assume that they're going to be, if we look at a student and just automatically assume that what they're doing on their phone is not valuable, I think that's doing them a pretty big disservice. So to automatically assume that devices are just going to be a distraction from real learning, I think is a mistake. Now they can be, if we simply chuck a device at a kid and say, good luck with your content, and then we're trying to instruct, and then they're off doing their own thing, and then we get mad at them without offering them any digital driver's ed, I think that's on us. So yes, they can be a digital distraction, but if we don't guide the process, we don't help them define the device as a learning tool, it's just as much our fault for them not being on task. Think about the last student or young person you saw with a device in front of them, and think about what you saw them doing on it. If you leave a student alone with a device, 95% of the time, they're probably going to be doing some sort of a recess activity on there. Maybe 5% work, maybe 5% productivity. And I think that there was such a huge push for technology in classrooms, especially when we kept hearing that there's a one-to-one environment, one device per one student. We may have lost track or began focusing on the wrong one of that one-to-one. We put more focus on the technology one than the student. And I think a generation may have gotten past us when we weren't driving this digital ship, because we let the students kind of define what it was, and we were more concerned with getting one in every hand than guiding the process, vetting the process a little bit more. So what can we do now? We can act as parents, we can act as mentors in this digital space. We can build in time limits at home. We can do our research on specific apps that kids are using, and we can help define it as a learning tool with our students and kids. Otherwise, like I've been saying, kids will define the device for you. Yes, an iPad can be a $400 Facebook machine if we let it. Now, this does create a new normal for us as educators, as parents, as mentors in this digital space. We tend to wear our struggles when we were younger as badges of honor. Like, I used to have to walk 2 miles in the snow uphill both ways to get to school, and crack open a dictionary to define a word. And I don't know that students today really care or should care about our struggles when we were younger, because they have things like Siri on their phone where they can ask it a question and they can get a definition for a word. They can find out any information that they want from their phones or their smart devices. So I don't know that type of access is cheating. I think that it just saves valuable time, and your brain doesn't waste real estate. If we can get to the top of a 20-story building quicker by taking the elevator, well, why wouldn't we? I mean, I guess we could take the stairs, but we'll be tired in the end. And finding a middle ground in the classroom and in our homes with our students with this ease of use and ease of access does and has created a new normal for us. Now, you don't have to raise your hand because you're watching this, but if you routinely have 4 or more tabs open on Google Chrome when you're browsing the web, you probably think you're a pretty good multitasker. But if you have this many tabs open, if you're trying to do this many things in your brain as an adult at one time, if we don't know how to do it correctly, if we can't pay attention to more than one thing, we have 5, 6, 7 tabs open, and our brains are all over the place, how can we expect young people who don't have the capacity to compartmentalize that well, how can we expect them to do the same thing? If we're not driving digital literacy in this way, if we're scatterbrained, how can we teach our students not to be? How can we teach our students to focus when we have problems with it when we're adults? So what are the conditions for leaned-in learning? How do we get our classrooms to look like this, where our kids are around, working together, maybe using devices, maybe not, but they are completely engaged and everybody's working together to complete a task? I think the difference between being engaged and being empowered is you can be engaged with something very statically, like you can be engaged with a good book, but being empowered really provides you with real stakes in whatever you are doing. So I can speak from experience in terms of empowering students, because what we did at Citrus Springs Middle School was we started a Genius Squad, which was basically, try to think of it as the same thing as Apple's help desk that they call the Genius Bar at their stores, where they help with iPad problems when you bring in your device. These students that comprised this club, there was about 13 of them. They had very real office hours. Teachers could schedule them to come in. They would do some iPad maintenance. They came into their classrooms and taught how to use specific apps. But the really powerful thing was I had them publish every Tuesday a Tech Tuesday video, which was their own. They could go off on their own, and they published what was important to them about the technology. It could be a piece about a specific app. Some students chose to interview teachers about how they were using apps in their classroom. Some of them did iPad do's and don'ts. We interviewed through Google Hangouts real developers from Edmodo and Notability, and we published them to YouTube. So the students got to really see the inside track of why these apps are developed, talk to real companies about the apps that they were making, that they were using in a very real way in their classrooms, and it just provided them with a real authentic use of the technology. Not only that, we took their videos, we published them to iTunes U, the catalog that Apple provides for free coursework, and the students got downloads from the United States, Malaysia, Australia, all of these countries over here on the right. And I talk about engagement, but empowerment. I showed them this data piece and they were blown away. Talk about being or having real stakes in what you're doing. This is publishing your content in a very real way that other people are using, not just for my eyes only as their teacher. I'll leave you this quote by the excellent Kevin Honeycutt. If you want to go to his website, it's kevinhoneycutt.org. Excellent educational thought leader, former educator. And this quote is just great. Fear and bravery are learned behaviors. Be sure to inspire bravery. In this changing world, kids are going to need it. Thanks.